It's quite a trek from the source of the sarsens to Stonehenge. It's a good day's walk, even if you're not dragging a 30-ton stone. But which route did they take? Come with me as we walk in the footsteps of the Neolithic builders. This is Stonehenge, access all areas. Right, now this is the spot where you start to see the whole route sort of opening up. If you look out, you know, this is the next stage, isn't it? This is the next stage of it. And yes. I suppose there's a temptation to think that, you know, this is quite easy and that's also quite easy because it's flat. But I think that's...
See, this fills me with dread. If I was moving something large, this is sort of doable, I can see this, but this low-lying flat ground, which is clearly would have been very boggy in the past, raises so many issues in terms of moving very large, heavy things.
Yeah. Well, there are names out there that call it, you know, so-and-so marsh.
Right.
It's very soggy, and in parts of it there's lots of sort of braided streams and, you know, small rivulets and things. So finding a way across that, like you say, I think is key. And again, I think you look at the layout, the present day layout, that road that skirts around the hill here, heads out across the plain there, across this vale.
Yes.
That's built on a slightly higher, drier bit of land.
Yes.
And, you know, is that following the same route that those stones took 4,500 years ago? You know, to me there seems a logic in that.
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, if you were crossing this 4,500 years ago, you would be looking for those high points, wouldn't you? You would be avoiding the low points. And I'm assuming, as you say, that medieval road will have done exactly the same thing. It would have picked out the high points across that low-lying area.
I mean, people had common sense thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, didn't they? And if that's a logical route,
I mean, it's interesting, even with that though, there would still be places where, of course, you're encountering real issues. You know,
you have got to cross a watercourse at one point. But again, I think there's we'll see that. I think when we get down there, I think there's a logical place to cross it. But I mean, you wouldn't go out across there, would you? That's flat, soggy, marshy.
Yeah,
that's
a world of hurt. But also, sorry.
Yes.
But also, what becomes clear, and again, in the woods this morning, what becomes clear is that there are people scouting out in detail, aren't they? They're not just, again, rocking up.
No.
So it's a clearly identified route. People are surveying it, you know, sticking sticks in places that are really boggy.
Or you might try your first stone and actually it's a complete disaster and you rethink and you shift it over.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you think that this is a big problem, because everybody in the past has always focused on getting the stone up onto the chalk, you know, onto the plain, somewhere up that scarp that you can see in the distance. But actually, I don't think that's the major problem. I think you're right. This is the most difficult part of the journey.
I think
it looks the simplest, but it's potentially the most difficult.
Undertaking.
Well, I'm glad we're not pulling a 40-ton stone, because what we've got to do is we've got to head off now, down slope,
to the vale,
hit that road, and then follow that across the vale. Right. Well, there's one problem that the Neolithic stone pullers didn't have to deal with. They didn't have to cross the railway,
or the canal.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when you just sort of get up just a little bit above something like this, because, you know, you can see that sort of gentle rise there, can't you? And the fact that we've come down following the line of the road all the way down. Yeah,
I mean, it's obvious when you're on it, isn't it? It's definitely a rise in the ground. And actually, as you look up and down the vale, there are other rises, but clearly what makes the difference here is that it's
a continuous ridge, isn't it?
That's right.
Because like you say, out there are some sort of lower bits, aren't there? But this seems to be the most continuous one. So I mean, we've headed down from Adam's grave.
Yeah.
So we started here in West Woods, and then followed that valley down, and then we've been up at Adam's Grave, which is the point where you've got the scarp, where it drops off down into the vale, and then we followed the road, the track and the footpaths all the way down here, which seems to be the logical place to go, and we've ended up down here at Woodborough. I still think this is the most logical route. You've got, at some stage though, you've got to cross something wet. You know, you didn't have to cross the canal, because obviously that wasn't there. But the river does run sort of east-west across this, so you're going to have to cross it somewhere.
Yes.
And I think what we're talking about avoiding areas where you've got lots of braided streams and marshiness, you know, I think that's very sensible. And to me, the most logical place to cross is down here at Marden, for reasons that I hope will become apparent when we get there. The fact that there's also a huge henge monument there, I think is, I don't know whether it's a coincidence or not.
It's
but
interesting that it's
intriguing,
there,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so bye-bye Adam's Graves and off to the river. Yeah, because this is the place that, you know, I've always felt is the crossing, because, you know, the henge is here, so we're actually on the henge bank here where it drops off into the floodplain. But you see, it's quite narrow, because it only goes across to where that other tree belt is.
Yeah. I mean, given what we've just come across, which was broad expanses of low ground, this seems like a pretty feasible crossing point.
Because you've just got the one channel. The river is actually in the trees there. You know, the River Avon.
Yes.
The river.
River.
It's bizarre, isn't it, that the word Avon means river? But you know, it's quite small. The evidence seems to be that this floodplain, which has got an awful lot of sort of peats and silts in it now, that those are all a later accumulation.
Right.
So it's likely that it was more solid. There's a more solid
sort of
base
gravelly,
here. Yeah, gravels, things like that back in the Neolithic. But you know, I don't know, what do you feel? Do you feel that there's a logic to choosing somewhere like this?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you know, this versus a sort of multi-channel nightmare, as I would call it, that would be the worst possible case scenario. But I think even there's a couple of questions that raise themselves, is what sort of time of year this might be happening, because obviously that dictates dramatically the state of the river. But actually, in terms of breadth, I think this seems pretty reasonable, and I can't see any reason why.
You could bridge this.
Yeah, I mean,
you could actually put a solid structure.
Exactly.
Across it.
I can't. You know, as we sort of arrived, I was thinking about those incredible well linings from Germany. So these are early Neolithic well linings, which are box frames that stack on top of each other with beautiful mortise and tenon tusk joints. And you know, you look at this and you realise that with carpentry like that, and this is thousands of years after that, there's no reason why you can't build something substantial. If it's a single crossing point and you're not doing it time and time again, this is the place you're coming to. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, if you've decided this is the logical place to cross because of what goes on that way and what goes on that way, then to me the logic is there to invest time, effort and resources to making this a simple crossing place.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, again, I think when people think about monuments like Stonehenge, they see the stone. But of course what we're not seeing is the vast amounts of timber that supported and enabled that stone structure. So, you know, even moving a 40-ton rock is going to require many more tons of timber to enable that. So although some people might look at this and think there's no way they're going to build a bridge of that length, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Given the amount of timber that must be being used elsewhere for monuments at this time, I think it's a single crossing point, it's narrow enough. Absolutely, I can see that working.
Good. Yeah, so this is the point at which you get your first close-up look, really, at the scarp. You know, you've got last flat bit and then the scarp that leads up onto the chalk of the plain. And of course this has always been seen as being the great obstacle, but I think, you know, what we were talking about back there, crossing that big soggy vale, is actually more of a problem, but you still have got to get up onto that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I still think, like you, the vale is the major obstacle, and not that this is not an obstacle. It's clearly an obstacle, and it's you know, it's steeper than the land around it, but.
I don't think it's too huge a problem.
No,
I mean, there's always been a big focus in the past on Redhorn Hill, which is just up there. You know,
Right.
that's the one place that you can get up onto the plain. But actually, if you look, you can see the grass, the green fields.
Yes.
They're the ones that are too steep to cultivate.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other fields where they've been ploughed.
Yes.
One there, there, across there. So there are options of slopes that are gentle enough, I think, to get up onto the plain.
And even just looking at the horizon from where we're standing, you know, we've got high points, and then actually there's a rather nice depression here, which is farmed.
Yeah.
So, you know, straight ahead, but clearly.
So there are options.
Yeah,
There are
definitely.
And I mean, I don't know. You know, imagine if it was here all that time ago. You know, what's the choice? I mean, today the choice is between Marden Cowbag and Churton Maggot, the two brilliantly named fields.
Nice.
Now I'm going to go for Churton Maggot, which is that field over there, where you can see there's a diagonal track.
I was going to say there's clearly some sort of trackway going up there, which is suggestive that it's the way to go up, isn't it?
Okay, so Churton Maggot. Here we come. Brilliant name.
Yeah, nice.
Well, it's quite a pull, but it's not that bad, is it really?
No, I mean, it's, you know, as we were walking up, you could see the gradient in comparison to Redhorn, and it's a very similar slope.
Yeah.
But obviously we're coming up at an angle, which is interesting.
That helps, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
But one of the things that's always struck me about coming up a slope, especially if you're coming up diagonally, which obviously lessens the gradient, is the potential for what you're pulling up to sort of slip off in either direction. Well, head off basically downhill.
Yeah.
Do you think, walking up here and looking at this hollow way that we're walking up, I mean, obviously this has been eroded by vehicles over centuries, but if you actually created some sort of a slight hollow way, that would help, wouldn't it? Because it would help to contain whatever you're pulling up, stop it slipping off. Do you think that's a sort of feasible idea?
I mean, we've encountered this at Stonehenge when we've been doing our small scale experiments, haven't we? Once it starts to walk down slope, it's very difficult to bring it back on track. So, I mean, for me, there's sort of two potential solutions here, but the first one definitely, and it works, by coming up the slope at an angle, you're obviously decreasing the gradient. But that would require a lot of earth moving, wouldn't it? But again,
in the scale of things, though, it's not that bad. And if this is, you know, like we talked about the bridge over the river, you put the effort. You've decided this is a good place.
Yes.
You put the effort into building something. If you decide that this is the route up, the best route up, then to just level a platform, dig something out, it's not actually very big on the scale of what they're doing at the moment.
No,
you know, they're building Durrington Walls, they're building Silbury Hill.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely,
not a massive engineering project.
No, I mean,
it?
in comparison to those, it's absolutely tiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, and I think what we've ascertained from this trip so far is that, you know, descending from Adam's grave, descending that scarp in the first place requires earth moving. You're not just going to let it run down a slope. So you're going to be shaping the landscape in some way. We know that, you know, getting across that high ground, across the vale, yes, we know there's a sort of semi-ridge, very low ridge, but there must have been areas where they're also modifying the landscape, putting in whatever causeways they need to. And then obviously when you get to the slope, I don't see why they're not moving earth, but what you'd have to do is make sure it's really level. There's no point in doing this unless it's level. And as you say, I think it's...
Well, the key thing is here, we're on chalk.
Yes.
We're on hard chalk.
Yes.
That much below the surface.
Yes.
So if you want to engineer something and create a flat platform, then you can do that.
But as we know with chalk, the problem with chalk is it is really slippery.
When it's
So
wet.
any moisture on that packed chalk surface, and it's treacherous. I'm not, you know. So there must be solutions, and whether the edges of it are stepped in some way so that you can get a better sort of pulling surface. We're making this up. We're having a guess, aren't we? But so for me, I think there's two choices. This is one. And it makes a lot of sense because you're reducing the gradient. But the second, and obviously this is permanent, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is a permanent solution, and potentially you're creating this permanent routeway from westwards to Stonehenge.
But what about the idea then that once you've created this route, this is somehow a sacred route. It's the route
Yeah.
along which the stones come. It becomes something significant with the landscape.
Yes.
You know, I'd quite
Yeah.
like the idea of that.
Yeah.
There's something special about it.
Yes.
Because it's what the stones were transported on.
Yeah, I mean,
not just a practical solution.
No, I like that. Yes, and as we know, you know, from this whole sort of idea, we know that this is not just about functionality. This is not just about solving problems. This is about what it means as well. But I'm going to say it,
Yeah,
because
okay.
the other solution is, which is a temporary solution, and when you look at those amazing photographs, turn of the century in Sumatra, where traditional tribespeople are moving large monoliths in beautifully crafted sleds up very steep slopes, they're doing it on a ranged series of sleepers. So they've got round timbers pegged into the ground, which provides your sort of friction brake, if you like. And they're hauling these stones up what appear to be quite steep slopes. So the alternative to this, which is a lot of manual labour and construction, is that you take a beeline up a slope and you have some sort of sleeper system, if you like, which is nailed to the ground, and the stone comes up in very direct lines, and you have to kind of stop it from
heading off back down the hill.
But I mean, that would be possible, but I think, we're looking at two options here, and one is a permanent option which potentially has a lot of meaning behind it, and the other one is a very functional short-term option.
That to me seems just a little too functional. I like the idea that there is a ceremonial element to this and a permanent, you know, almost like a pilgrimage route.
Yes.
You know,
No,
did people follow that route in future years because it was the route
Yes.
that the stones had taken?
But-
you know, I like the feeling that we're walking here in the footsteps of the people that moved those stones.
And that's
4,500
because you're a fantastic romantic, and I totally get that. But again, if we go back to those photos of those tribespeople, that's clearly a meaningful act.
Yeah.
But they've also solved it in a really functional way that doesn't leave a permanent trace. So, I mean, it's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think what's absolutely clear from the journey we've done so far is that this is not a case of people going to get a stone in an immaculate flat grassy field, simply pulling it to the end destination. They are clearly having to modify, in my view, the landscape quite seriously in places to overcome those obstacles in order to get there. Okay. The meaning behind it, I'm sure there was, has to be.
Thank you. Okay, so all we got to do now is carry on up this last bit and then 10 miles of flat undulating chalk. So sadly this is the point at which we have to stop. We've covered a lot of the difficulties. I mean, from here on it is about 10 miles of just slog across gently undulating but firm chalk.
Yeah.
You know, there are no major obstacles, there's no river valleys, there's no boggy bits or anything.
No.
It's just a long way.
Yeah, okay.
So
we've tackled the tricky bits.
we've tackled the tricky bits. I think now we just have to acknowledge we can't go any further.
Yeah.
We'll pick it up at the other end, close to Stonehenge.
Yeah, so you'd still need places to break and take on.
Yeah, and somebody's got to look after them, haven't they? So I mean, if you've got 150 people moving a stone, how many people have you then got to provide that support for them?
Yes.
I mean, it's a very undulating landscape here, isn't it? But gently undulating.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, you get the very first glimpse on the ridge over there near Robert Hood's Ball, but it's just...
That's a lovely view though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Cool, so imagine you get here, that's your destination.
Yeah.
You know, not that far to go.
I mean, you'd be sweaty.
Yeah. It interests me though, you know, obviously the landscape's changed because the cursus is there, so that's 500 years old at this stage, isn't it? So that presumably is greened over, no round barrows, and presumably after the first delivery you're going to see a trackway or ruts or something,
there would be a visible route,
landscape.
wouldn't there? Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah.
But it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I sort of start imagining what if you've gone to the trouble, and it is a lot of trouble delivering these sarsens, what is waiting for you at the site. You're not going to turn up with 70 odd sarsens and somebody go, okay, that looks about right, what should we do with them? So there must have been infrastructure, somebody there who knew what was going on.
I wonder if there was a sort of like the equivalent of a builder's compound, you know, because if you've got that number of people all working there, you're going to have somewhere for them to store stuff, eat.
Yeah, exactly, piles of fresh timber hewn with stone axes, you know, you're going to need all of that for moving and lifting. I mean, it would be, to all intents and purposes, a modern building site, wouldn't it? And maybe not with a compound, but
I don't know.
A bit of Harris fencing.
Yes, and signs with all the health and safety regulations on them. You know, no access without safety footwear. No, I don't think there was any of that.
But there must have been something there in terms of infrastructure and the expectation of these stones arriving, don't you think?
Yeah. Right, we're here. This is the end of that epic journey, isn't it, of the sarsens from Westwoods, you know, across the chalk, across the Vale of Pewsey,
up that
incredible slope, and then across the plain, all those miles of the plain, to here.
Yeah.
You know what strikes me is, what would the person who delivered the first of those massive stones have thought when they dropped it here? You know, even if there were some of the smaller blue stones here, this is the first massive stone to arrive here.
Yes, and I mean, I suppose what it immediately indicates is that you're not turning up to a sort of wilderness with nothing in there.
Well, you've got the enclosure that's been here for 500 years.
That's right, but you're also turning up with a design in mind, aren't you?
Yeah.
So this isn't teams rocking up with stones and somebody saying, oh yeah, we'll have one there, we'll have one, let's put one across the top. Clearly there's a design going on and you're part of that. It'd be really fascinating to know how much of those teams knew that design. You know, did they know?
Did you come here first and go, right, okay, this is what we're going to build?
Or did somebody find you and your team and your community and say, we've got this amazing idea, would you like to be part of it? I mean, it's really interesting questions, isn't it?
And also the fact that if you turn up here with the first one, they go, fantastic, now bring me 74 others. You know, you sort of think, what? You know, seriously, you want 74 of these stones on top of this one? You know,
it's mind-blowing,
It is mind-blowing, because of course we know that they deposited it presumably just over there, because that's where all that stoneworking debris was found. So you know, that's where they're shaping, because of course what arrives here are just rough stones, aren't they?
Stones,
even if they've been roughed out.
Yes. What an incredible thing. I mean, we've stood in this monument on many occasions and it never fails to impress.
No, and I get so annoyed with people who aren't impressed with it, because yes, you know, it is astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, when you think about the distances and the effort and the logistics and the cooperation and the thinking that goes behind creating this.
So, as an experimental archaeologist looking at this monument for many years, we tend to focus around the sort of technicalities. You know, how difficult is it to move large stones from A to B? What are the mechanics involved with lifting lintels? All of those sort of technical aspects. But actually, the more involved in this process I've become, the more you realise that actually the wonder of this monument is the fact that we're looking at things brought from broad geographical areas by communities that had to be in close contact for that to happen. All of those relationships over distance, which again, I know some of this is obvious to some people, but it means that it's a prime example of the Neolithic world not being this little sort of
little communities,
nuclei of communities, but actually it's a broad Neolithic world. Sea travel, continent, all of that is encompassed in this kind of monument, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
Yeah, and this is why Stonehenge is so amazing, isn't it? It really encapsulates all of these extraordinary ideas. 75 giant stones, a journey of nearly 20 miles. So how did they move them and shape them? Join us next time as we explore ideas from the feasible to the quite frankly fantastical in Stonehenge, Access All Areas.